Higher Education and Training Minister Buti Manamela announced the establishment of a war room to address challenges in the post-school education sector. The initiative is part of the department's preparations for the 2026 academic year. It will target delays in National Student Financial Aid Scheme allowance payments, accreditation of student accommodation, and finalisation of examination certificates. The war room gathers department leaders, NSFAS officials, university representative, TVET college staff, community education and training college personnel, student organizations, and quality councils. The groups will meet weekly to identify and resolve issues that disrupt learning and teaching. Manamela says the war room focuses on rapid decision-making. He says through the war room, they will tackle outstanding issues head-on, from the timely payment of NSFAS allowances to the accreditation of student accommodation, the finalization of examination certificates, and the resolution of disputes that can otherwise disrupt teaching and learning. NSFAS supports 900,000 students annually with bursaries and loans across South Africa's post-school system. We now speak to Buhle Magwaza, who is a project lead at Youth Capital, a campaign advocating to solve youth unemployment. Buhle, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Youth Capital has engaged with young people across the country in the higher education system with regards to the difficulties they face there, particularly accessing resources as well as NSFAS accreditation and, of course, the post-accreditation support that oftentimes results in very frustrating circumstances for students. Paint for us a picture about what the scale of the problem looks like from the engagements Youth Capital have had with young South Africans.
Good evening. Youth Capital conducted a survey this year to really find out more about the experiences of young people funded by NSFAS. We found some, very pretty devastating information, issues around erratic payments, allowances arriving late, inconsistent amounts or not at all, media exclusions where some students were abruptly dropped from the system despite being in good academic standing, and then the knock-on effects, missed rent payments, food insecurity, disrupted transports, and being unable to buy basic study material. For many young people, the consequences were not just academic but existential. A missed payment could mean eviction from the residence, going hungry for weeks, or being forced to abandon studies. And much of the public discourse is really on NSFAS failures having focus on universities, but the crisis is really in TVET colleges where the impacts are more severe. The divide between university students and TVET students is quite stark, and it is often ignored by policy debates. For TVET students, they receive low allowances, which are significantly lower to support them despite their...
Sorry, your line cut there as you were still explaining to us the findings of the survey, and saying that the problem with frustrated funding systems is not that the problem is merely only academic, but oftentimes existential for students. Sketch that out further for us.
Sure. I was explaining that when we look at the NSFAS funding, everyone's focus is on university students, but the crisis in TVET colleges is even more severe. There's a very clear divide between university students and TVET students, and it is often ignored in policy debates. For example, TVET students receive lower levels of allowances. This means that they have significantly less support than their university counterparts. They are more dependent, and TVET students are more likely to come from poorer families with no alternative sources of income or family support. And then when payments are delayed or stopped, TVET students have fewer safety nets. They cannot just ride out a missed allowance. The impact is immediate and quite devastating for them. And then this means that this dysfunction is then forcing them into multidimensional poverty, where they're unable to cover basic costs that they are forced to take out high interest shock loans, or families must borrow money and cut back on essentials, thus trapping them into this cycle of poverty and debt and insecurity.
Yeah, the war room announced by the minister is a cross-sectoral, multi-layered, multidisciplinary team that is meant to solve the complexities of these problems. From your understanding of the problem, what do you think it will take to really unravel some of these, what seems like systemic and endemic fractures and frustrations within the NSFAS funding system?
The war room sounds quite optimistic. This move represents a long overdue acknowledgement that the financial aid system is in deep crisis. For years, young people have borne the brunt of NSFAS's dysfunction, from delayed allowances to sudden exclusion. But at the same time, it sounds like a very high-level intervention. Regular meetings, bringing together leadership and all stakeholders in aims really to solve the administrative bottlenecks and prevent them from escalating into campus-wide crises. It promises faster responses, better coordination, and an early warning system to detect issues before they even spiral. And this is great. If implemented well, it could restore some measure of stability to the higher education system by forcing key stakeholders into the same room every week. It may then break the cycle of siloed decision-making that has long defined NSFAS. For example, if allowances are delayed, the war room may push for immediate resolutions. Yet the war room sounds like a firefighting mechanism. It is designed to manage the symptoms of dysfunction, not the root causes. Unless accompanied by deeper structural reforms, it risks becoming a symbol of action without the substance of change. And you've touched a little bit about some of the structural issues. When it comes to things like the war room, it really looks at like the administration, but it doesn't look at like the bigger picture. What are some of the structural challenges that young people are facing in South Africa? They're facing the employment pathways not being there. They're facing very high levels of poverty. So therefore, the war room needs to be more than a short-term fix. It must evolve into a platform for structural reform. This means that it must then make sure that students can receive their payments on time. It must make sure that the allowances, like I've mentioned, on the issues around TVET students receiving less than university students. It must make sure that the allowances are adequate. NSFAS must also end the inequitable treatment. And then also student-centered accountability. Success must be measured by not whether meetings were held, but by whether students received their funding on time, they could complete their studies, and then there are no death traps. It's also important to also look at transparency. The war room must not just be a publicly reported forum. It must have clear timelines and consequences for failure. Therefore, it is a welcome recognition. We think that it's the move in the right direction. It has potential to reduce the chaos of missed payments, but then it must address the inequalities that exist within the system, within the pathways for youth unemployment, within the pathways for making sure that young people are able to access funding adequately without any exclusion based on where they are coming from.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this evening, Buhle Magwaza. Really do appreciate it. Buhle is with a youth organization called Youth Capital and is a project lead there.